So good evening all. This is Sanjay. Today I'm going to explain about a new chapter: cell injury, cell death, and cell adaptations. First, let us see what is pathology. So pathology is the study of structural, biochemical, and functional changes in cells, tissues, and organs that underlie disease. So pathology is nothing but the study of biochemical, structural, and functional changes that happens that occurs in cells, tissues, and organs, which is nothing but the mechanism for the cause and the showing of the symptoms in that particular disease. Next, we'll be seeing about the four important aspects of pathology. So the first one is how the disease is caused, that is causation, or in medical terms it is etiology. So and next we'll be seeing about biochemical and molecular mechanisms, that is pathogenesis and the associated. So next we'll be discussing about the morphological changes, that is physical changes and functional alterations in cells and organs and clinical manifestations. So let us see what is etiology. So etiology is nothing but how a disease is caused. See here, there are many factors that cause disease, and those factors are classified into genetic and non-genetic causes. So genetic causes nothing but the causative mechanism of the disease might be inherited or acquired, or the mutations will be acquired, and disease associated gene variants or polymorphisms. And environmental factors, so environmental factors nothing but what which is surrounding us, that is millions of bacteria, fungi, and infectious parasites, and all these contribute to environmental factors. It consists of infectious, nutritional, chemical, and physical agents. And we should remember that disease is usually caused by one etiologic agent. Okay, so a single disease is caused by one etiological agent. But by the study of so this concept came from the study of infections and inherited disorders, which are caused usually by single gene anomalies. But the majority of diseases are not simple, they are complicated. Why? Because there are many factors which cause a single disease. For example, atherosclerosis and cancer will be caused due to the effect of various environmental insults on a genetically susceptible individual, and hence are referred to as being multifactorial. So you should remember this point. And next we will be starting with pathogenesis. So pathogenesis is nothing but in short, molecular mechanism that causes a disease. So the sequence of molecular, biochemical, and cellular events that lead to development of disease. This pathogenesis explains how the underlying etiologies produce the morphological and clinical manifestations of the disease. The study of pathogenesis is a central focus of pathology. So for example, if you take the disease cystic fibrosis, you all know that the cystic fibrosis is caused due to mutation in CFTR gene. So in this, the sweat of the infants will be salty in taste. So and it is an autosomal recessive disorder. So here, not only the defective gene and gene product will contribute to cystic fibrosis. So if the gene is defective, definitely the protein synthesized by the gene will also be defective, and so biochemical morphological changes takes place after the gene becomes defective. Simply we can't tell that defective gene produces disease. So behind it, the defective gene will produce the defective proteins, and it will show irregular gene expression. So the biochemical and morphological events will take place, and it will lead to clinically significant disease in lungs, pancreas, and other organs. Next, we will see what is omics technology. So omic technology is nothing but genomics, proteomics, and metabolomics to to investigate for a disease. And next we will be discussing about morphological changes. Morphological changes is nothing but the structural alterations in cells or tissues that are characteristic of a disease, and hence diagnostic of an etiological process. So if you see the appearance of a person, we will understand what disease it is. It is mainly due to the symptoms arose mainly due to morphological changes which occur due to structural alterations in cells or tissue. So we have to follow its progression to determine the nature of disease. And then as I said before, the analysis of protein expression, genetic alterations will also contribute to morphology. And then the study of neoplasms, breast cancers, or indistinguishable and morphologically may result from different genetic abnormalities. So molecular analysis by techniques does next generation sequencing has revealed genetic differences that predict the behavior of tumors as well as their response to therapies. That is, the next generating sequencing is a new technique which will reveal genetic differences that predict the behavior of tumors. So due to the gene difference, how a tumor will react to the way of reaction of tumor to each and every individual is unique, and how they produce the response and how they respond or react to therapy. So some drugs will produce allergic reactions. So all these we have to take into consider. So therefore pathology is useful to study all these. And then we'll be discussing about clinical manifestations. So what is clinical manifestation? So the end products of genetic, biochemical and structural changes in cells and tissues or functional abnormalities that lead to clinical manifestations. So finally, after etiology, after pathogenesis and after morphological changes, we will see the clinical manifestations that helps in identification of disease. It is nothing but the end result of genetic, biochemical and structural changes in tissues. Okay, so these are functional abnormalities and lead to clinical manifestation as well as its progression. Progression is how it spreads. Next, we will be discussing about stages of cellular response to stress and injurious stimuli. So a normal cell is under homeostasis. It should maintain a healthy steady state called homeostasis and a variety of physiological processes. So in case if the cell is under any stress, they might get adapted. They must undergo the adaptation process. So adaptations are reversible, functional and structural responses to changes in physiologic states. Example, pregnancy. So adaptation is nothing but the reversible, functional and structural responses. So whatever changes we expect in physiological states, that is in case of pregnancy, the cells will get adapted. So in case of pregnancy, the cells must get adapted to, and this is a reversible process, and this is a reversible functional and structural responses to changes in metabolic or physiologic states. Next, we will be discussing about what is adaptive response. So adaptive response may consist maybe of hypertrophy. What is hypertrophy? It is increase in size of a cell, and an increase in cell number, that is hyperplasia, and a decrease in size and metabolic activity of the cell, that is atrophy or aging, or a change in the phenotype of cells, that is metaplasia. We will see all this in detail. So next, we will be seeing about how cell injury is reversible. So cell injury is reversible if the stimulus is light, but if the stimulus is beyond the threshold limit, and if it is severe, the injurious stimulus is persistent or severe, the cell suffers irreversible injury which leads to cell death. So adaptation, reversible injury and cell death are the three stages of progressive impairment following different type of cell injuries. So for instance, if we want to have increased hemodynamic loads, heart muscle becomes enlarged due to vigorous activity. It is a form of adaptation as it is vigorously active working. So which, because the increased metabolic demand is more susceptible to injury. Okay, so your body requires blood, and how oxygen, and also requires oxygen too. So oxygen is carried to the body mainly by blood. So we want the heart to pump more, and hence the heart muscle becomes enlarged, which is a form of adaptation. See, unless the blood supply is quickly restored, the cell suffers irreversible injury. So if there is ischemia means the decreased blood supply to the cells. If the blood supply to the cells is not quickly restored, then the cells suffer irreversible injury and die. So Cell death is the process of removal of damaged, unneeded, and aged cells. Okay, so this is what the introduction of pathology. Next, we will be discussing about causes of cell injury. So the cell injury is mainly caused due to hypoxia. It's a very important thing. Hypoxia is the most vulnerable cause of cell injury. In this, hypoxia is nothing but a deficiency of oxygen. It causes cell injury by reducing aerobic oxidative respiration. Hypoxia is an extremely important